DND number 3, Finding Home in Jesus' Name. Chapter 16. Couldn't sleep. Chaz said he entered the kitchen to find John apparently washing dishes at the sink. Jody was craving something sweet. I couldn't find any ice cream, but Maddie's rice pudding seemed to do the trick. But I didn't want to leave a mess for my first night here, so I just doing up the few dishes. Good idea. John turned to eye Chaz, taking note of the gun in the waistband of his jeans. How about you? Couldn't sleep? Chaz slumped down at the kitchen table. I heard noises, got up to investigate. Not taking any chances. I guess you heard what's happened to Lisa since she's been here. I heard someone doesn't want her around. Heard that same someone broke in and sliced her open, and I heard about the cat. Yeah, I'm scared to leave her alone, so I moved in. No ideas as to who wouldn't want her around? Oh, I have ideas, all right, but it still doesn't make any sense. She's no threat to anyone except Andrea, that is. John joined Chaz at the table. Who's Andrea? The girl who lives on the other side. The back of their property backs up to Maddie's. She fancies herself in love with me. And you think she'd try to hurt Lisa because of that? I wouldn't have thought so until she cornered me last month and told me something that totally blew me away. What was that? Chaz sat quietly for a moment, wondering if he dared chance a conversation that would involve speaking of the death of his wife and child. Yet, even as he thought about it, he realized the pain and had lessened. He found himself wanting to talk. Hey, if it's something you don't want to talk about, that's cool. Chaz glanced up. Sorry, no, it's okay. I think I can talk about it. I was married once. He paused a moment, swallowed hard. 3 years ago, my wife and 2-year-old daughter were killed in a car accident. Drunk driver. Oh, man. The words were uttered softly, and Chaz looked up to see the tough Special Forces Marine veteran with nothing but heartfelt compassion in his eyes. He looked down quickly, getting control of his own emotions. His intention had been to tell just enough to explain what Andrea had said, but suddenly he wanted to say more. She was a blonde-haired, brown-eyed baby girl. So beautiful. She laughed all the time, you know. She giggled. What was her name? Julie, he sighed. Sweet, sweet Julie. My wife's name was Carrie. She was so protective of that baby girl. She hovered over her. She went crazy if she scraped a knee. I know I shouldn't think this way, but I can't help it. I keep wondering if Carrie died hearing the screams of the baby. It would have been agony for her, you know, not knowing, not being able to get to her, to comfort her. I keep hoping they went together. His voice broke. John stayed quiet while Chaz got himself together. Chaz finally looked up. Sorry, man. You don't have to apologize to me. That's enough to break anyone. Jody tells me you were a paramedic. Chaz nodded. Was. After I found them like that, I fell apart. I just couldn't do it anymore. You found them? I was on duty that night. I arrived on scene, and I lost it. John uttered a soft curse. I'm sorry, man. That's bad. Yeah, whatever, he sighed. In the past. Have to move on. John looked him over. Actually, you have to heal, and you're not there yet. Chaz's eyebrows rose in question. Before you take my head off, let me just say that I have some experience with this. Look, man, I was in Iraq myself, Chaz said. A corpsman. I've seen some horrible stuff. Limbs blown off, faces mangled, 18-year-old kids screaming for their mothers, but nothing comes close to finding my wife with her head bashed in and my kid's body mangled and bloody, hanging upside down in her car seat. I'm sure. I'm not saying otherwise. What I am saying is I know about trauma, and I've learned to deal with it. I've learned to heal it. It's one of my professions. I can help you if you'll let me. Now's not the time to go into it, but maybe another day. We'll talk. Too tired to argue, Chaz let it go and changed the subject. You were Special Forces, right? A fellow Marine. John nodded. A raider. I gave everything I had. I finally had to get out. I saw too much. I thought too much. And I killed too much. You regret it? Chaz asked. No. Can't live in regret. I mean, I've made mistakes that I regret, but I don't regret my life decisions. Every experience makes us what we are today, and I saw fighting for our country not just as a duty, but as something I wanted to do. I've always believed that if there's a bully on the playground hurting the other innocent kids, it was up to the strongest good guy to do what had to be done. Even when the teacher looks over and all she sees is the good guy pounding on the bully, and she ends up punishing that good guy. He shook his head. I used to see everything in black and white, and then I began to see gray areas, and everything started to blend together, and I became uncertain if everything I was doing was the best thing. So I got out. But I tell you, I've done things, Chaz, that would sicken you. I've killed, I've maimed, I've made godlike decisions that I will have to live with the rest of my life. I've seen things that I couldn't get out of my head. Until I met the man who helped me and healed me, I was a basket case, and so I became a healer myself. Chaz scrubbed his hands over his face. I thought to be a healer once. I went to medical school. I had a few years under my belt when I joined the Marines. Have you thought about going back? I was working on it back when before my wife and kid died. I haven't thought about it since. Is it something you really want to do? Good question. I have to think about that one. Well, that's your answer right there. So back to the original story. What does this Andrea girl have to do with the accident? Nothing, except she let me know that she thought it was meant to be. Like God made it happen to clear the way so she and I could be together. Huh. So she is sick enough. Exactly. So I wouldn't put it past her to try to do something to hurt Lisa since she knows Lisa and I are together. But it was a man who cut Lisa. Yes, but I can't help wondering if Andrea got someone to do it. You really think she would go that far? I really don't know. I think the sickness runs in the family, though. It was her brother who took Lisa out on a date a few weeks ago. The date went south real fast when the pass he made at her digressed into attempted rape. What the? Is he dead? Chaz snorted. I got in a few licks after the fact. It was Lisa who did the major damage, thank God. And I've heard from Jody the latest with the roofie and Lisa's ex. I wanted to kill that one. If my younger brother hadn't shown up, I may have. And your brother's the cop, right? Deputy Sheriff. He's a good man. Always likes solving puzzles. He has some theories about who it is that wants Lisa gone. I know he thinks Andrea's brother Marcus is involved. And so do you. I do. Unfortunately, we're walking on hallowed ground. His uncle is the county magistrate. It's hell trying to get a search warrant to begin with. Still, we will figure it out. Meanwhile, I'd like to try to keep anything else from happening to Lisa. I mean, enough is enough. Absolutely. What do you say I give Lisa a few lessons in self-defense? I'd say that would be a great thing. New scene. The weakest targets in a man are those he can't actually strengthen: his eyes, throat, groin, and knees. And you have strong weapons: the bottoms of your feet, your elbows, hammer fists, and palm heel strikes. Lisa nodded, trying hard to take in every word that John said. Jody stood beside her, helping to position her when needed. I'm going to teach you to focus on 4 goals when being attacked. Number 1, get your head out of the way of his hits. Number 2, prevent him from choking you. Number 3, prevent penetration. And 4, kick the heck out of him. The lesson became steadily more intense, and by the end of the second hour, Lisa was exhausted but revved. The feeling of power that came over her was seductive and fascinating. She just finished thrashing John when Chaz appeared on the back porch, and he gave her a standing ovation. Lisa looked up grinning and took her bows. You don't waste any time, Chaz said to John. John smiled. No time like the present, my teacher always said. Chaz sat wearily on the top step. You're speaking of your special forces teacher? The girls and John joined Chaz, each sprawling across their own step. No, I started long before that. I was extremely lucky to be able to learn from Master Kino before he stopped teaching regular classes. Kino, as in Ricky Kino's father? Chaz asked. That's him. He's an amazing man and a good friend. Well, that Ricky Kino is a scrumptious hunk of a man, Lisa added. Chaz eyed her, thinking of the martial arts movie icon. Whatever. He looked back at John. Anyway, your Master Kino married that Mart winner, didn't he? The one from right here in Georgia. Shelley Adams, Jody supplied. Small world, isn't it? And they have a child now. She's like 3 or 4. Gorgeous kid, John added, thinking too late of the effect his words may have on Chaz. He caught the look of pain before Chaz was able to mask it. He made a mental note to himself to speak with Chaz soon about helping him. Master Kino stopped teaching regularly last year, but he keeps a close eye on his schools. He presides over black belt testing. Ricky actually teaches some when he's not making movies. He's a good guy. He's not all full of himself like you'd expect a big star like him to be. That's cool, Chaz said. Speaking of small worlds, remember back a few years ago when that guy raped and tortured Master Kino's wife? Lisa asked. Yeah, I remember that, Chaz said. It took her a while to get over it, John said. Well, the guy who kidnapped her, his name was James Crane, Lisa went on. He owned Golden Hotels, that is, before he died. And that's how Lou was able to step in and take control. Strange how we're all connected, Jody added. Strange or meant to be, John said. Lisa eyed Chaz. You're a mess, she said, changing the subject. Did somebody roll you around in the dirt? As a matter of fact, they did. One named Brownie and one named Bucky, who, by the way, was aptly named. You got thrown? Jody asked. Several times. I'm trying to break 2 new horses today, and they didn't want to be broken, so I'm moving a mite slow. I got bruises on my bruises. Did you finally succeed? Nope, not yet, but I will. They just have to get to know me. I've gentled much meaner than those 2, he said, smiling in Lisa's direction. She frowned. Don't you dare compare me to a horse. He grinned. What makes you think I was talking about you? So, Jody interrupted, I understand we have some huge plans for the 4th. Chaz nodded as he winked at Lisa. That we do. 4th of July is a big deal around here. Most everyone here is involved in the big parade over in Macon. Big production. Our high school band is marching, town dignitaries will be riding, sports stars, different floats, horsemen and women, even the little dance school will be marching. Then we'll all come back to our little town where all Main Street will be turned into a giant fair. There will be amusement rides and shops and crafts and everything in the world you'd want to eat. Fried turkey legs and fried chicken and some of the world's best barbecue and watermelon and homemade ice cream and hot dogs and hamburgers and cotton candy, you name it. That sounds like a blast, John said. Oh, it is. And there'll be bands of all kinds, some country, some rock. The high school choral department will give us a patriotic show. And then to top it all off, we'll all go over to Wilson's Lake for a fireworks display. It's small town Georgia at its best. I detect a note of pride, Lisa said. Chaz nodded. That's right. You do. Lisa turned to Jody and John. And that's what I'm banking on. What person would want to pass up something like this? A real 4th of July celebration in the heart of the South. Take a trip back in time to when things were simple. I love it. Got to get some good pictures, Jody added. I was hoping you would take care of that this time, and next year we'll be able to hire a professional photographer. I think I can do it, Jody said. I have a good eye and a decent camera. This is going to be great fun. The screen door slammed, and all 4 faces looked up at Maddie. Okay, young'uns, the tiny lady said, hands on hips. I've got 8 apple pies to bake, 3 pans to fill with potato salad, another 2 of coleslaw, and a slew of chocolate chip cookies to get out, so I'll take any volunteers brave enough to work in my kitchen. Oh, I'd do anything to stay on your good side, John said. The rest echoed that line of thought. New scene. Lisa sat up slowly, forcing herself to stay calm. Without making any noise, she slid open the night table drawer and felt for her gun. The panic began to rise when she realized it was gone. Her mind raced back to the night Chaz had come to her. Did he take the gun? Did she put it in another hiding place? Why couldn't she remember? And there it was again, the noise that had awakened her. She sat very still, listening, her breath coming fast, perspiration beginning to trickle down her forehead. How fast could she make it across the hall to Chaz's room? Someone was in the house. It could be Jody or John making a snack, she thought, trying to rationalize her fear. Yet something wasn't quite right. Gathering her courage, she eased off her bed and to her door. Quickly and quietly, she moved across the hall to Chaz's bedroom and slipped inside. The room was empty, the bedclothes in utter disarray. She smiled, thinking of his bedroom in his home and his messy ways. It didn't bother her. So it must be Chaz downstairs. Smiling, she tiptoed down the steps to the kitchen, and her mouth felt open. Mother! The small woman turned sharply, grinning at her daughter. How many times have I told you not to call me that? Sorry, Lisa said before she could stop herself. What are you doing here? Did you think I would just let you come here and take what is rightfully mine? What are you talking about? Oh, I've heard all about your plans for making a fortune on this dump. Sorry, but it's not going to happen. Lisa stood up straighter, battling the need to cringe whenever her mother spoke to her. You have no say as to what happens here. The farmhouse, the land, everything is mine. Grams gave it to me, mother, because she knew I'd appreciate it for what it is. Well, she had no right, and I'll get a court order to stop her, Lou answered. Why? Why would you do that? You don't care about this place. You left here 26 years ago. Why do you want to come back now? Why? Lisa cried. Lou shook her head. Don't you know? Because of you, Lisa. You. You belong to me. You are mine. Everything you do, everything you have is mine. I created you. You wouldn't exist if not for me. I pushed you out of my body. I stuffed bottles in your mouth in the middle of the night to shut you up. I paid my hard earned money to take you to the doctor when you got sick and to feed you and buy you all the right clothing. And did you love me, Mother? The words uttered so softly were barely audible. Look at you, Lou said, disgust dripping from her voice, standing there with that mess of red hair hanging down in your face, tears running down your cheeks. Poor little Lisa. That's how everyone saw you. All my friends, all the men in my life. You tried to take them all away from me. You were so greedy. How could I love that? You're a weak, pitiful little girl. How could I love that? Lisa raised her chin. I don't know why I asked the question. You're impossible to reason with. Did you know that the rest of the world doesn't think like you? You're the odd one. I didn't know that, not all the way until recently. The rest of the world is weak. Well, nevertheless, Mother, you have no more control over me. I am a person, and I don't belong to you, and you won't stop what I'm doing here. Lou smiled wickedly. You do belong to me, and what's yours belongs to me. Like what? Like that gorgeous young man you fancy. You leave him out of this. Too late. Lou glanced over toward the corner of the room, and Lisa gasped. Chaz? What are you doing here? Well, let's just say I've learned the error of my ways, Chaz said, a mocking smile on his face. Lisa's eyes grew wide as he rose and went to the counter where Lou stood, placing his arms on either side of the older woman. His head dipped to plant a kiss on Lou's red painted mouth, and Chaz looked back over his shoulder, smiling demonically. Lisa backed away. No, no, this can't be true. No, no. She turned and fled up the stairs, crying, screaming at the top of her lungs. No! She woke to Chaz's arms wrapped firmly around her as he rocked her back and forth. Shh, now I've got you. It's a dream. It's only a dream. Gasping, her eyes opened to peer at him. No satanic smiles, no trace of red lipstick. A dream. A horrible dream. She's okay? John asked from the open door. Chaz nodded at him. It was just a dream. Lisa heard footsteps in the hall and then Jody's voice. Is everything okay? Jody. When I tell you to stay put, you'd better do it, came the heated reply. Don't you talk to me that way. Sorry. Sorry, baby, I was still in lieutenant mode. Heaving a sigh, he ran his hands over his face. But when you know there's a possibility of danger, do you think it's wise to expose yourself to that? Oh, come on now, John. I peeked out the bedroom door and saw you standing in Lisa's doorway. You didn't seem to be having to take any action. Really? Well, what would you say if, for example, I was standing here in the doorway because an intruder inside the room that you couldn't see had his gun pointed at my chest? Huh? Jody tossed her straight black hair over her shoulder and padded back to her room. I'd say you were pretty dumb to get yourself into that kind of a situation. John watched her go, not able to suppress the smile that crossed his face. He turned back to Chaz and Lisa, reaching in to grab the doorknob. She's right, he said, still grinning. I'll just close the door for you. Good night. Chaz nodded at John before turning his attention to Lisa. How we doing? Feeling any better? Lisa nodded. Sorry. It was so real, especially at first. You want to tell me about it? She shook her head. Not really. Now that I'm thinking about it, it was just old fears surfacing. Old fears stemming from my cruddy childhood. Stupid stuff. The last part, it didn't seem too real, but it was the most hurtful. What hurt you so bad? You? Me? I will never hurt you, Lisa. Not on purpose. In the dream, you betrayed me with her. With her who? With my mother. He started to make a crass joke, but realized this was a trauma for her that hadn't healed yet. So he kissed her nose. I'm sure there's no reason for me to reassure you that it would never happen. She smiled. No, you don't have to reassure me. I told you it was silly. He snuggled down into bed with her, continuing to hold her tight. Lisa, my love, would you mind if I gave you my take on a few things? She rubbed her cheek against his chest. No, I don't mind. Well, you had a rough go of it as a child. No real home, constantly moving, no friends, and a witch for a mother who wouldn't even let you think of her as your mother. A childhood like that made you the strong person you are today, but it also might make you believe that you are all alone in the world. And I want you to remember that there are people in your life that you can depend on, family and friends, and mostly me. Each day, I grow to love you more and more. I just wanted you to know. Chaz, you are a really good man, she sighed. I'm trying, he replied. Let's pray away those nightmares. Let's do, Lisa said softly. New scene. Good morning, Lisa, Grams chimed as she opened the door carrying a breakfast tray. I thought we'd have a little. She stopped as two heads poked up from under the quilt. Oh, my, I am so sorry. Chaz grinned, placing his hands behind his head against the headboard. Good morning, Miss Maddie. Looks like you caught us red-handed. Shut up, Chaz. Grams, Lisa began. I'm sorry. I had a nightmare last night, and Chaz came in to pray with me. Pray? Oh, sure you did. Lisa's face turned red. I'm just teasing, Maddie added quickly. I was going to have a little private time with you and discuss some of our goals and so forth. No big deal. We'll do it another time. She turned to leave and then turned back, waving her hand at the couple. Y'all just continue on praying. It's good for the soul. I'll see you downstairs. She closed the door as she left. Red-faced, Lisa leaned back against the pillow and blew out a breath. That was embarrassing. Chaz chuckled. Well, you might not ever be able to convince her that nothing happened last night. I mean, we were praying. Well, we were before we fell asleep, Lisa argued. Well, we might as well get in a few kisses as long as she thinks we've been intimate. Lisa laughed. We might as well. 30 minutes later, Chaz and Lisa joined the others at the breakfast table, Chaz grinning, Lisa red-faced. So, what's on the agenda for today? Jody asked. Just one day before the big celebration. There must be something to be done. Well, Chaz began, I got to go take care of the horses, and then, if Miss Maddie is through with us in the kitchen, I promised Joe that we'd be in town to help him get his place ready. And my dad needs a booth built for the Shriners, and Mrs. Talbot needs one too, and she needs help getting her goods out. She's just the sweetest little old lady, Maddie put in. Must be close to 95 by now. She makes some beautiful quilts and dolls. Simply amazing. We should buy some of her stuff and carry them in a gift shop. Oh, that would be great. Lisa grinned. I've turned Grams into a real entrepreneur, haven't I? You know what, Grams? You're absolutely right. Mrs. Talbot's work would probably be perfect for our gift shop. Jody and I will check it out, and we'll keep an eye out for some other crafts too. Well, Nellie Berger makes wonderful silk flower arrangements and Southern style wreaths, and her sister Sally knits those adorable picture frames and scrapbook covers. I'll keep those in mind too, Jody said with a smile. So, Grams, do you need any more help in the kitchen today? Lisa asked. No, dear, I just have a few little odds and ends to do, and I want to gather a few baskets of tomatoes from the garden, and I'll be fine. You kids run off and help out in town, but don't forget to be at the Stewart's house by 7. Lisa turned to Chaz. Your parents' house? Chaz shrugged sheepishly. Yeah, I forgot to tell everyone. You're all invited to my parents' house for a pre-4th dinner. Well, apparently you didn't forget to tell Grams, Lisa fumed. Well, she was here when my mom came by to do the inviting. Shame on you, Chaz, Maddie chided. I'm sorry, Lisa. If I'd known I couldn't trust Chaz to tell you, I would have made sure you knew. Well then, Miss Maddie, I've disappointed you. What can I do to make it up to you? Chaz said. Don't you worry, mister. I'll think of something. And that is the end of chapter 16.